Blessings, beloveds. Welcome back. Anastasia, Cosmic Astrologer, with you guys today. And today's topic is going to be on esoteric astrology. So what I intend to do today is just simply point to the importance of the ascendant, to put it quite simply. Now, there is exoteric astrology and there is esoteric astrology, and there are other branches as well, but the esoteric and exoteric really work together. Exoteric is based on the personality and esoteric is based on the soul. So this video will really only appeal to those of you who are, I suppose, on the path, who are truth seekers, who are at a point in their life, who are ready to really evolve from that soul level, and who are already doing that, and also understanding that the soul's pathway must be integrated with the personality path. Pardon me. In exoteric astrology, which is personality-based astrology, which is incredibly powerful, incredibly useful, and absolutely necessary, or it wouldn't exist, and we wouldn't exist. The point, though, is that as one is evolving and becoming more conscious, what is actually happening is that there is an integration and fusion between the personality and the soul. When a person is operating predominantly from the personality level, then the personality is the driver of the individual's life, and therefore all the experiences that they will be presented with. Now, everything is evolving in life. You are evolving, I'm evolving, all human beings are evolving at very different rates. It's a very personal journey. The earth is evolving, the planets are evolving, so everything is always moving and evolving. That's very important to understand, really, and to acknowledge. If I can just read this quote to start off before I start unpacking some things about the ascendant on an esoteric level. So this is a quote by the great Madame Blavatsky. Matter is the vehicle for the manifestation of soul on this plane of existence, and soul is the vehicle on a higher plane for the manifestation of spirit. And these three are a trinity synthesized by life, which pervades them all. That's a very, very powerful quote. You may need to pause it, maybe write it down, maybe look it up, reflect on it, essentially. It's a very, very powerful quote. Now, if you are a beginner in astrology, I would think that it is incredibly challenging to just dive into esoteric astrology. My suggestion would be to dive into exoteric astrology, which is personality astrology, which is just as important, just on a very different stream. Because once you have that foundation, that understanding, it is a lot easier to understand the esoteric level of astrology. And certainly when you are very young, so when you're in your teens or your 20s and even your 30s, there are exceptions, of course, but generally speaking, esoteric astrology would not appeal to you, because it is a space or state or level of consciousness that one has stepped into, which doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. It's a path of evolution. It's a path of expansion and growth. So when you are interested in esoteric astrology, what that really enables you to do, which by the way would take you a few years to deeply understand. It's not an easy area of teachings. It's incredibly vast, incredibly rich, and whilst you will use your left brain to a very large extent to absorb the information, the more dominant, more powerful way into this is through intuition. So intuition needs to be heightened, tuned in, sharpened, and worked with when you're working with esoteric astrology as well. Now, in exoteric astrology, the ascendant, also known as the rising sign, describes many, many different things, which most of you are probably aware, but just to run a few key words. It's the lenses which we look through that filters pretty much our perspective of life. It's how others see us. It's the point of the chart, it's the easterly point of the birth chart. So it's the sign rising at the easterly point of the horizon at the time of your birth. It is the ascendant connects to the persona, the physical appearance, the physical body. It is the area of the chart that describes how we begin things in life, how we start things. I think that's enough kind of key words. That's the exoteric level, the personality-based level, which is extremely important. The esoteric level, though, the ascendant specifically describes the soul, the spirit, being born into this physical vehicle. So the ascendant sign on an esoteric understanding describes your soul, and it describes the evolutionary path of your soul. So when you are wanting to understand your ascendant from an esoteric level, first of all, you need to understand the exoteric personality level, because in exoteric astrology, there is different rulership for the signs. Different planets rule the signs. Each ray is connected to 3 different signs and to specific planets. So let me just take a step back. When I say each ray, what I'm referring to there is that in the teachings of esoteric astrology, the fundamental premise of these teachings derives from what's called the 7 rays. And we are all born into any one of those rays. Now, for today's video, and predominantly with how I work anyway, I really focus on what's called the personality ray and the soul ray. Because the personality ray, which will be ray 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, and the soul ray, which will be any one of those 7 rays. And sometimes people are born with the same personality ray and same soul ray, which has a very specific understanding unto itself. But understanding what your soul ray is and what your personality ray is very, very useful and very powerful in understanding how you can integrate the two, how you can fuse the personality and soul ray together, and what might be the inherent challenges or conflicts that lie present in these rays that rule your personality ray and your soul ray. You see, whatever the soul ray is and whatever the personality ray is, if they are different, let's say, generally speaking, what's going to happen is that the personality ray, whatever it is out of those 7, is going to be operating very, very different and have a completely different agenda to the soul ray, whatever soul ray you have. So the path of awakening and of evolution and consciousness and waking up is about understanding the primary attributes and components of your personality ray and your soul ray, how they might be different to each other, and how you can integrate the two together on your path of evolution and awakening. And the ascendant sign, because it is the soul, is a very important component of this picture of the soul ray and the personality ray. So I just want to read something else. When you're working with esoteric astrology, as I said, esoteric astrology is the soul level, or the soul level is esoteric astrology, which is the higher self, another word we could use. The personality level, which can be defined as the lower self, is the exoteric branch of astrology. And that's not to say that the exoteric astrology or lower self or personality level of astrology is, we're not making a judgment on that. It's just a definition and a recognition of the difference between the two. So if you have an individual who is primarily driven by their personality, then it's more than likely it's going to be that there is no fusion of the soul. The soul is there, of course, it's always there, but the person's life and growth and development all stems and is driven by personality, which is what? It's essentially an identification with the external world. It's all about the external world because it's all about the ego and the personality. So it's all about the recognition, achievements, experiences that bring about all the different things that they do from that personality level, which can be gratifying at times, can be crushing at times. But esoteric astrology, which works from the higher self, from the soul, is not about being focused on the external world and the personality and the ego. It's really about having that awareness, that ability to turn within and operate and work from that soul level. And usually it doesn't really happen for people until they're in their midlife. There are exceptions always. And sometimes it doesn't really happen for people at all in a particular incarnation. They can live an entire incarnation where the primary force is the personality, and that's fine. That's their path. That's their level of consciousness and evolution. So it's not a judgment, it's just a differentiation. And for those that are more externally driven and motivated, they will not be interested in this video or in esoteric astrology. When we are working with esoteric astrology, intuitive ability, having the intuitive ability to recognize the level on which all these cosmic energies, these planetary energies, the zodiacal archetypal energies, the intuitive ability to recognize how these energies are expressing themselves and the nature of their interrelationship. This is basically what defines being on the path, being on the soul path, as opposed to the personality path. So the fusion and integration of the soul ray and personality ray is absolutely paramount when you're on a path of evolution and consciousness. When you are looking at your ascendant sign, the first thing you need to do, as I said, is understand it from the exoteric level. So if you have Pisces rising, what does that mean on an exoteric level? If you have Aries rising, what does that mean on an exoteric level? And what is the planetary ruler to your ascendant or your rising sign from an exoteric level? You need to have that as a as your basis of understanding, because that gives you an incredibly powerful tool in understanding a component of yourself, of your ascendant on that exoteric level, from a very powerful psychological space or understanding and emotional understanding. When it comes to the soul understanding, spiritual understanding, evolutionary understanding, then you need to understand the ascendant sign and how it's understood on the esoteric level through esoteric astrology, because esoteric astrology has a very different understanding to all the zodiac signs and to all the planets. And there is very different rulership associated with each planet and sign. And I will actually read to you the exoteric ruler and the esoteric ruler of the 12 signs of the zodiac in a moment. And I will also leave some references below to a book that I think is probably the go-to book if you really want to get into this and you don't want to necessarily read volumes and volumes that pertain from Alice Bailey and some others as well. So Alice Bailey was one of the original people that brought esoteric astrology to the West, really. And there was also, before her, a Tibetan master by the name of, I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce his name correctly, so I'm sorry if I don't, DJ Wal Kul. So I will spell that for those of you that have not heard of him. So Tibetan master is often how he is referred to, and the name is spelled DJWHALKHUL. And I just put a post about him just on my community section of YouTube. So you can also go to the community section and you'll see his name spelt. You'll see a photograph of him and one of his very famous quotes about astrology, which is a beautiful quote. So some of you have seen this, I know, because I've seen the activity on the community section. And so thank you for those that are engaging and connecting. So Alice Bailey has used a lot of his work in her work. Also, Madame Blavatsky, her work has come through Alice Bailey's teachings. But in more modern times, it is Allan Oken who has produced a book that contains pretty much everything, you know, that you would need to get a really good, solid foundation and insight into esoteric astrology. But this is a very specialized area. It is very vast, as I said, and it's not lightweight. You know, you really need to be prepared. You really need to be receptive and open and ready to take that path of understanding astrology on this level. But if you are at a point in your life where you recognize that you are more in tune with your soul's path, with your soul's expression, your soul's desires, and you're wanting to understand that more through the lens of esoteric astrology, then this video will be helpful because it will be a beginning point to direct you on that path, and just it will give you a little offering of understanding the ascendant from a soul level, from an esoteric level. Okay, so as I said, there are 7 rays, and as I also said, I work with the personality ray and the soul ray when I'm assessing an individual's birth chart. That just gives me a whole level and understanding of perhaps any inherent conflicts or tensions that are present in the person's life from a soul level and a personality level, and what might need to be understood in order for this person to be able to grasp what is actually going on with them from the point of view of perhaps the inherent sort of tension and conflict between the personality and the soul, and what that is, what that looks like, and what it is that they need to understand in order to fuse and integrate the two together. So first of all, let me just go through the rays. Some of you will be familiar with this, some of you will not. So ray 1, which is all about will and willpower, it is a very, very powerful ray. It is ruled by Pluto and Vulcan. Vulcan is included in esoteric astrology, and so is the Earth, which is very different to exoteric astrology. Vulcan is the alchemist, in short, to put it short. So Vulcan represents that energy of the internal alchemy that we pretty much commit to on the esoteric soul level. So ray 1, which is to do with will and willpower, is ruled by Vulcan and Pluto. And the 3 signs that are associated with ray 1 are Capricorn, Aries, and Leo. Now, this is not going to make sense when you're trying to understand it from the exoteric level. This is why, if you're interested in understanding this, you do need to study quite deeply. But this is a beginning point for those of you that may be interested. So each ray has, let me just backtrack. Each ray, there are 7 rays, and each ray has certain planets associated to the ray, and each ray has 3 zodiac signs connected to the ray as well. The 3 signs that are connected to each ray can be any 3 signs, that they're not necessarily all the fire signs or all the air signs, that they can be in any kind of order, and it's a little bit difficult to get your head around it. But I think the most important thing to start with is to understand the 7 rays, what they each represent, the associated planetary rulerships to each ray, the 3 zodiacal signs that connect to each ray. Start looking into what is your personality ray, what is your soul ray, what is the difference between them, and therefore how is it that you can fuse and integrate the 2 together. And also understanding your ascendant, your rising sign, your ascendant in your actual birth chart. Its meaning on an exoteric level, its planetary ruler, and then its meaning on an esoteric level, and its esoteric planetary ruler. That's where I would start in terms of a beginning point of starting to grasp this level of astrology, esoteric soul astrology. So going back to the 7 rays, I've just told you what ray 1 is. It's a very, very powerful ray. For example, if somebody has ray 1 as their personality ray, that's a very, very, very magnetic, powerful individual. And this is important as well. Every single ray, so all the rays, will operate on a personality level and on a soul level. The 12 zodiac signs, they all operate on an exoteric level and an esoteric level. The planets that we work with in exoteric astrology, because they use the same planets in esoteric astrology with the addition of the Earth and Vulcan, as I said. The planets also can operate from a lower level exoteric level or a soul level esoteric level. So the signs, the planets, and the rays all can operate from a lower level and a higher level. The lower level being the personality and the higher level being the soul or the higher self. So ray number 2 is called Love Wisdom. It's one of the most beautiful rays. It's my favorite ray, and I'm not being biased, even though that is actually my soul ray. That's what it is for me personally. And it is the heading, or the key phrase is love wisdom, as I said. And so people who have a soul ray number 2 are those people that love astrology, love teaching, love to give love. They are the healers, the helpers, of humanity. Those are just some keywords. There's a bunch a lot more to understand about each ray, but I'm only just giving, a couple of keywords here and there. And the ruling planets for ray number 2 are the Sun and Jupiter. And the signs connected to ray number 2 are the 3 mutable signs. It just so happens to be the 3 mutable, which is Gemini, Virgo, and Pisces. Ray number 3, which is called the ray of active intelligence, it's basically connected to mental illumination. So, well, that speaks for itself, really, doesn't it? But we're talking about mental activity intelligence from a much higher spectrum, because we're talking about the soul component of it, or expression of it. The planets connecting to the 3rd ray are the Earth and Saturn, and the signs are Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. So here we have a sequence again of the 3 cardinal signs. Ray number 4 is harmony through conflict, and it's many different things, but it is the divine artist. It's a very, very creative ray. The juice of creativity is enormous. There's enormous potential in this ray number 4. The planets connected to it are Mercury and the Moon, and the signs are Taurus, Scorpio, and Sagittarius. So there we have 3 very, very different signs. Ray number 5 is concrete science and knowledge. And the planet is Venus. It only has 1 planet connected to it, and the signs are Leo, Sagittarius, and Aquarius. Now, ray number 5, being concrete science, knowledge, being ruled by Venus, is really pertaining to, well, here's an expression for you, a keynote. It's the vehicle of expression for the ideas in the mind of God or Goddess. So it's the absolute highest manifestation of the mind channeling, God's mind. How powerful is that? Ray 6 is devotion and idealism. This is a very difficult ray if you have it on a soul or personality level. It has extremely beautiful, high-quality soul expressions to it, in terms of the love and devotion and sacrifice that it is able to give, and it does. But when that's operating at a lower personality level, it can be quite dangerous, either for the individual themselves or for wherever they are projecting that energy, because, by the way, ray 6 is ruled by Mars and Neptune. And Mars-Neptune on a personality exoteric level is one of the most difficult combinations of 2 planets being together. So it's a very, very difficult ray when it's operating on that personality level. The signs connected to it are Virgo, Sag, and Pisces, so the 3 mutable signs. And finally, the last ray, which is ray number 7, is ruled by Uranus. And the traditional term or key phrase is called ceremonial order, which can be very difficult to understand in this day and age. It just seems a bit of a limited sort of phrase. So another term that I've heard being used to explain it, which makes a lot more sense as well, is practical mysticism. So another way of understanding that would be to say it is the complete connection and synthesis and understanding of divine timing, and bringing in the divine timing into this practical, earthly 3D world that we live in. It is a very, very powerful number, and it is often found in people who have incredible ability with sense of timing on a number of different levels. Now, timing is a very powerful component of astrology, because when one is working with predictive astrology or forecasting, you are working with timing and understanding the principle of timing relating to the planetary cycles and everything that entails within that. The signs associated with race 7 are Aries, Cancer, and Capricorn. So those are the 7 rays, and the corresponding planetary ruler to each ray and the corresponding 3 signs to each ray. That just gives you something to reflect on, think about, write down. As I said, I will direct you to a book anyway. So where I want to kind of wrap this up is, I've already said this anyway, but I'll just summarize and add one other very important component. When you are looking at your ascendant, look at it from the exoteric point of view, understand the meaning of the sign, understand its ruler. Then go to the esoteric level. Understand the esoteric level, soul level. It's your soul. The ascendant is your soul. So understand the sign from the esoteric level, its attributes on that much higher manifestation. Understand and find its ruler, its esoteric ruler. It's going to be different. Oh, sorry, pardon me. I do need to read you the rulerships. I'll do that actually. It's different to the exoteric ruler. Let's just go to that now. So, Aries, exoteric ruler. Mars, esoteric ruler. Mercury. Very different, aren't they? It makes you kind of think, whoa, how does that even make sense? But it does. Once you start researching this, once you start going into it, it will unfold. But, you know, it depends on you. It depends on what you are ready to understand and learn and receive and absorb and evolve through as well. Because esoteric astrology, yes, it works very, very differently to exoteric astrology. It is the soul, purely and simply. And it's born from love. It's born through this divine connection, expression, embodiment, understanding that is channeled through love, essentially. Because when we are operating from that soul level, you know, qualities of compassion, empathy, love, caring, those qualities just, they come flying through you when you are operating from that soul level. When we are operating from the personality level, you know, we get our back up, we get defensive, our ego takes over, our personality takes over. In order for me to be right, I have to make you wrong. It's all that sort of stuff that goes on. But when one is on the path and they are living from that soul level, they don't need to make another person wrong in order to feel right, because that is not a soul expression. That is a personality expression. Okay, going back to the signs. So as I said, Aries is ruled by Mars traditionally, and in esoteric astrology, it's Mercury. Taurus is ruled by Venus, as we know. Esoterically, it's Vulcan. Gemini, Mercury traditionally, and esoterically, it's Venus. Cancer is ruled by the moon, as we know, and esoterically, it's ruled by Neptune. It's very fascinating once you start getting into this and understanding these rulerships. Leo. Leo actually is the only one that remains the same. It's ruled by the sun in both exoteric and esoteric astrology, which is interesting too. Virgo, ruled by Mercury, and in esoteric astrology, the moon is the ruler of Virgo, which is another reason, and I've said this in previous videos, when people have their moon in Virgo, there's a clairvoyant ability that's inherent there for people to tap into. Scorpio, Libra. Libra ruled by Venus, and in esoteric astrology is ruled by Uranus. Libra is ruled by Uranus. How weird does that sound? Very. Scorpio, ruled by Mars Pluto on the exoteric level, and esoterically it is only connected to Mars, not Pluto, which is interesting. I know there'll be a lot of question marks around that, but let's just continue. Sagittarius ruled by Jupiter, and in esoteric astrology it's ruled by the Earth, which again will throw a spanner in the works for those that haven't looked into this. It's like, well, how does that even make any sense? Well, my last video that I did, which was on the new moon in Sag, I spoke about that. I spoke about the new moon being ruled by Jupiter naturally because it's in Sagittarius, but I made a few comments about the Earth from an esoteric level ruling Jupiter and why that is significant. So I would encourage you to watch that video if you haven't, just to get a bit of understanding around that. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and here's another one that remains the same. Saturn is the rulership on an esoteric level as well. And Aquarius, traditionally ruled by Saturn and Uranus, Saturn being the classical traditional ruler and Uranus being the more modern ruler, if you like. It's a transpersonal planet anyway, so it's really tricky when it comes to assigning rulership of the outer planets to the zodiac. There's some question marks around that, but there is certainly a connection between the outer planet and the zodiac sign that's assigned to it. Now, esoterically, Aquarius is ruled by Jupiter, which is fascinating. That means a lot for me personally because of my ascendant sign. My ascendant sign is Aquarius, so therefore esoterically I'm ruled by Jupiter, and my soul ray is Jupiter, ray number 2. So here I am doing what I'm doing. So I'm on my path. Pisces, which is traditionally ruled by Jupiter and secondary ruler being Neptune, in esoteric astrology is ruled by Pluto. Now, it's really powerful to know this and to understand it, because the next thing that I wanted to explain was this. As you start to become a little bit familiar with these teachings, just by, first of all, getting familiar with the different rulerships in terms of the planets ruling which signs, which I've just given to you, then when you are looking at your ascendant, you're looking at your ascendant from an exoteric level and an esoteric level, and you're getting a feel of two very different planes, fields of experience and understanding. Once you start to get a feel for this and you start to understand the rulerships associated with the signs, then when you look at your ascendant, and let's just say that you are, around about midlife now or late 30s. Look, you can look into this when you're 20 as well. I'm not saying you can't. But like I said at the beginning of the video, it is more typical that people tend to be more receptive, more interested in, or more open to this path, in the second half of life. That's just what seems to happen. And that really does connect to certain planetary cycles as well, pertaining to Saturn and Uranus and Pluto, actually, and Neptune as well. So if you do have a little bit of understanding about this, a really good thing to do is, if you're going through something in your life at the moment that feels like it's a path of where your soul is waking up more, there's something waking up within you that feels like it's coming from a soul level, that's conducive, to your path of evolution, which might show up in external events through you being more connected to, for instance, what your ascendant sign means esoterically, and how you are working with that sign esoterically, and how that helps you align the soul and personality more closely together, which is the whole aim when we are on the path of awakening and evolution. So, as I was saying, you might see this in your life being expressed through you. Your awakening has a very specific external expression in terms of what you are doing with your awakening. So, it could be getting into some field of helping and healing, for instance, that could be really opening up for you now. And that, would connect to your ascendant sign, for instance, from an esoteric level and its planetary ruler. And the next thing that I wanted to say was that if you are going through something that feels like a soul awakening time in your life, then first of all, have a look at the relationship between the exoteric ruler and esoteric ruler to your ascendant, because they are likely to be two totally different planets. So it is good to have a look at where those planets are in your birth chart, and what house they're in, what sign they're in, and what relationship do they have to each other, because that's going to give you another level of understanding of how the personality exoteric level of your rising sign can be integrated or fused and work with the esoteric meaning or understanding of your ascendant sign through looking at the two different rulerships in your birth chart. So let me give you an example. Say that you had Libra rising. Then normally, traditionally, you would be looking at Venus in your birth chart. You would be looking at, well, where is Venus? What sign is she in? What house is she in? What aspects does she have to her? That would be your basic foundation of starting to delineate the ascendant, the rising sign, which is Libra. But when you apply the esoteric level, then you would be looking at Uranus, because Uranus rules Libra in esoteric astrology. So where is Uranus in your birth chart? What sign is Uranus in? What house is it in? What aspects does it have? In other words, what relationship does Uranus have to all the other planets in your birth chart? And then you would be looking at, well, does Venus and Uranus have a relationship in your birth chart? Do they have an aspect to each other? Are they talking to each other? If they do have an aspect, what is the aspect? Is it a dynamic, conflicting, challenging aspect, or is it a soft, flowing, harmonious aspect? So these are the keys that would begin to help you start to understand your ascendant sign from a personality level and from a soul level. And then what you can also do is if you are having a period in your life that you can define as some kind of a part of your journey where you feel that there's some soul awakening things going on for you, which is very different for everybody, then if you had a Libra ascendant, look at the transits of Uranus at the moment, because Uranus is the esoteric ruler to your ascendant, and your ascendant is your soul's evolutionary path in this life. So have a look at what transiting Uranus is doing at this point in your life in order to be able to give yourself another layer and another level of understanding and meaning to your soul's evolution. And what is Uranus triggering off at the moment that describes your soul evolutionary path of awakening? So that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. Hopefully that is clear and useful to at least get you thinking, reflecting, and starting to explore this absolutely gorgeous, beautiful, ever-expansive level of astrology, which is the esoteric realm and body of knowledge. So thanks so much for watching, and thanks for your comments and questions, guys. Really appreciate them. Keep them coming. As I say, I always do my best to respond to them. Sometimes I don't get notifications of people's comments on my videos. And so what I did the other day was I ran through most of my videos, which took me 3 hours, and opened up each video to see if there were any questions that I hadn't noticed, and there were quite a few, so I have responded to them. So I do value what you guys are saying, or I wouldn't do that. It took me 3 hours of an afternoon where I could have been doing something else, but I dedicated that time to do that because I value you guys, who give me your time when you sit here listening to me. And I value that and appreciate that, and I really hope that you guys are gaining and learning something through each video that I put together for you guys. Much love and blessings, and see you guys soon with something else. And feel free to contact me for a reading. I do many different types of readings, so if you have any questions, please email me directly and I can answer them for you. The details will be below in the description box in terms of how you can contact me, and see you guys soon. Hope you had a lovely new moon in Sag. Wasn't an easy one because it was square that Mars Neptune, but watch my previous video on the new moon if you haven't, to just get a bit more insight and maybe a different perspective than maybe some other videos that are out there. Okay, see you soon. Bye.